Well, the interesting story was, I mean, if you can just visualize, this was in the late 50s, 57, 58, right in there. And we had pulled these semis up into this lot. And we were, in those days, we didn't have hoists and cranes and all that stuff, so we had to slide everything off on planks. And we're sliding this stuff off, and this car pulls up out in front here. And well, he wasn't a young fella. He would have been in his 30s, late 30s, early 40s. And he pulled up there, and he had his mother in the car. And he came out, and he come up to me when we were out there sliding this stuff off. And he said, curiosity goes, and this is a fellow from Nebraska. And he said, what are you doing? And I said, well, interesting enough, I said, we're hoping and planning on opening up a retail monument shop. He said, really? He said, do you mind if I get my mother out of the car? She'd like to take a look at some of this. Just happened to be we were sliding off this big one. It was a 3.5-foot monument, 8-inch stock. And, I mean, you're familiar with that kind of thing. And but anyway, it was a South Dakota granite, and she just fell in love with it. And he, of course, in those days, the older people didn't do negotiating. The son, he came up and he said, what are you going to have for that, you know? And I just shot off the top of my head, and I gave him a price, and he said, we'll take it. Now, the interesting thing about that story is the fact that we weren't even open up. And I told him, this was in the fall of the year, and I said, you know, we probably won't even be up and running, you know, till sometime in the spring, you know. He said, that's all right. He said, when you get all set up and you start producing, he said, just go ahead and bring it over. It went right down here to Bow Valley, Nebraska is where we set it. And he just passed away here maybe within the last 5 years. But every time we would meet, he'd always get a big smile on his face. He said, you remember me? He said, I was your first customer. And which, I mean, I never did forget him. We became pretty good friends. And so that evening, I went over and I told my folks, I says, to my mom, I said, boy, you wouldn't believe this. I said, this got to be a good omen. And that's basically the way it started out.